Godrej Industries. Shortly we'll be joined by Adi Godrej as well. He was the awardee of the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Economic Times Awards for Corporate Excellence 2018 held over the weekend. So let's take it across to Mubina Kapasi. She's been tracking the group very closely. And a decade-year-old group, Mubina, just walk us through the history since its inception to today's date.
Well, a century-year-old group, really, more than a century-year-old Godrej Group. But, you know, interestingly, I was reading a report where it does say that if you work at Godrej, you can probably set your watch to the time Adi Godrej arrives for a meeting or an appointment. And I think this is a trait that I think is very, very admired by everybody who works with him. And Adi Godrej certainly has been a man who has had a 5-decade-long entrepreneurial journey. He kick-started in the Godrej Group when it was just perhaps I think 2 entities. 10 crores was what the revenues were, and now of course look where it is at, 32,000 crore rupees, with so many companies, so many different sectors that he has managed to bring about. Now take a look at what exactly stands at his credit. He's catapulted the group, he's maneuvered the group through the entire license Raj scheme, he's modernized the management structure. Godrej Group is known for one of its cleanest corporate governance structures as well. That as well is something you could attribute to Adi Godrej, to this 121-year-old journey. And now, of course, the Godrej Group, as you can see on your screens, look at the way the company has done when it comes to market cap, when it comes to revenue. It's almost been a one-way upward journey, whether it's for Godrej Consumer, where the market capitalization has grown to where it is now, almost about almost about 72,000 crore rupees, with the revenues as well coming to close to that figure. We also have Godrej Agrovet, which has surged significantly. Godrej Industries, essentially the holding company, has as well seen a marked improvement, as you can see on your screens. Between, of course, 2015-2019, there was a bit of a blip witnessed over there, but I think that was the case with almost all companies. Godrej Properties too, almost been a one-way upward journey, except for, of course, that little bit of a slowdown that we witnessed in 2017-2018 on account of the in general weakness that we have witnessed. But all in all, you know, it's been a 25% CAGR that Godrej Consumer has delivered in terms of revenues as well as profitability in the last 10 years. 25% revenue CAGR for the last 10 years for Godrej Properties too, consistently delivering well. In fact, in their recent press release, they've spoken also about the 17-year CAGR of shareholder return coming in at 34% versus BSE Sensex of 15%. So that as well shows the kind of wealth creation the company has brought about. And this is where the Godrej Group stands. These are all the subsidiaries. This is the shareholding structure at this point of time. So yes, the man at the helm, Adi Godrej, he's converted this company from a 10 crore company to a 32,000 crore rupee one, and just from 2 entities to now a multi-structure one, but with a very modernized touch to it.
Right, and that is the reason why Mr. Adi Godrej was given the Lifetime Achievement Award at the recent ET Awards for Corporate Excellence 2018. And we have him with us this morning to discuss the future. Of course, Mr. Godrej, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for taking out the time to speak with us this morning, and congratulations on receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award. Your brand has been one of the best managed corporate, and you've guided the group higher during even the license Raj time. So in approximately 50 years, if I may say, you've been active in India Inc. How has been the journey for you? I mean, because you've seen different economic cycles, different governments, and leadership transitions, reforms phase for India. Today, when you look back at the growth that you've achieved for your group and for your investors and shareholders, what is the feeling that you kind of resign to when or become nostalgic about when you look back?
Well, we have grown very well. Of course, during the license Raj period, growth was more difficult. After 91, when liberalization came about, growth has been even more, and we now have 750 million consumers who use our products in India, and about 1.15 billion consumers globally. And we might very well be the group with the largest number of consumers headquartered in the developing world.
Oh yes, indeed. Mr.
Earlier,
Godrej,
China Mobile had more consumers than we did, but now we have overtaken them.
and congratulations once again for doing that. Do you believe, Mr. Godrej, that the Godrej Group has been able to achieve today what you had aspired and targeted to achieve when you started off, or do you think you've done way better than that?
Well, I think we've done even better, and partly it's because what I had aspired when I first joined the group was at a time when there were severe controls on everything, and now of course there's more and more liberalization, more and more reforms, and I think that is helping the Indian economy. The Indian economy is today the fastest growing major economy in the world, and we fully expect India to continue to do very well.
Mr. Godrej, you among many people and one of the key representatives of India Inc. have been quite optimistic on the reforms brought about by the Modi government. But what's the on-ground difference you've witnessed in the last 4 years? Because the feedback that we get is quite divided. How do you look at what's been done from a policy-making perspective for the economy over the course of the last 4 years?
I think it's been good. I think by far the most important reform has been the goods and services tax, the GST. It has changed the indirect tax picture in the country. Business is much easier to do. I expect it will add considerably to growth over the next few years, and I think that's a reform which was in the making for many years, but the governments earlier were not able to put it through, but this government has, and I think that's a great achievement.
Right. Let's talk about the individual businesses then, Mr. Godrej, and let's start with the consumer business first. Considering, it's in the business of products that are discretionary, premium as well. How is it that you've seen the Indian consumer evolve in his and her consumption choices over the years?
I think the Indian consumer has grown quite considerably in every aspect, and I think the important thing to remember is our penetration. That means the number of families consuming particular consumer products is still quite low. So the scope for further growth over the next decade or two is very considerable. There are only 3 products, packaged branded products, which are totally penetrated. One is soap, second is some form of detergent, and the third is matchsticks. Everything else is under-penetrated. So the scope for growth over the next few years, we feel, is very strong.
Right. Mr. Godrej, in the light of demonetization, rates going up, GST implementation coming through, and of course the volatility in oil prices, how conducive you think is the Indian consumer environment and Indian consumer confidence in the backdrop of how macros have shaped up thus far?
I think consumer confidence is quite strong. Consumer growth is good. What is quite remarkable, which not too many people fully realize and comprehend, is that rural growth is faster than urban growth, and we have a very large rural population, and as time goes by there will be a bigger and bigger proportion of total consumers in India.
Growth, Mr. Godrej, has seen a pickup after a good 2 years. However, given the dependence of the rural economy on monsoon, how is it that the Godrej Group is dealing with, this erratic nature of how the rural growth actually patterns out?
Rural growth is good because the rural economy, we should realize, is not totally agriculture, and the monsoon only affects agriculture. For example, a significant part of the rural economy now is animal husbandry, that is production of things like milk, eggs, etc. That adds a lot, and that is not monsoon dependent. Also, the rural economy is growing in other directions. For example, because of the growth, retailing in the rural area is very big, employs a lot of people, creates a lot of income. So the rural economy has many dimensions. I think it's most people look at it too narrowly as agriculture.
Right. Mr. Godrej, I would want to ask you specifically about Godrej Consumers. It has a great deal of exposure to emerging economies, very vulnerable to currency volatility and economic slowdown.
Little louder, please.
I was wanting to ask you about Godrej Consumers in specific because, you know, they have, the business has exposure to overseas markets as well, a lot of emerging economies, and thereby there would be some association with the currency volatility that we are seeing in EM currencies across the board. Also the risk of economic slowdown. Will Godrej look in a larger way at other developed markets? How are you looking at your overseas strategy to manage business?
No, we are not looking at developed markets because developed markets consumer businesses are growing very slowly. So it makes no sense for us to get into an area of business where growth is very low. Developing markets are growing. Yes, you are right. Over the last few months, there have been some issues in the developing countries, as there has been in India. Oil prices, the dollar rate, etc., have had some effect. But we still are growing quite well, and we will continue to do that. In fact, the one country where we had a substantial business in the developed world was the United Kingdom. And we sold that business very recently at a very considerable profit.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about the property business then, Mr. Godrej. Does the recent funding crunch allow and open up opportunities for large players like yourself to go ahead and acquire smaller players? Because it seems that consolidation is where the real estate sector may be headed.
Yes, but we won't acquire businesses. What we are doing is acquiring projects. In other words, we are tying up with smaller builders to complete the projects they had started, and they're facing some problems in being able to do so. But we won't acquire any companies. We don't need to acquire the companies, but we have taken over quite a few projects, and that way our growth will be faster.
What is your own sense? I mean, not just talking about the specifics in real estate, but, you know, as a sector, how do you see the real estate market, you know, kind of building the value that you seek in the business? Do you think that under RERA, you know, there is a strong chance of a more structured real estate development environment in India, and especially in the key markets?
Yes, I think the real estate industry in India has huge opportunity for growth. It is our fastest growing business. We expect it will continue to be our fastest growing business. And the opportunities are huge. As you rightly put it, there's need for a lot of housing in India, even for commercial real estate. So it's an area of great focus for us.
Mr. Godrej, it's such a pleasure having you on the show today, and once again, many congratulations on winning the Lifetime Achievement Award. I would say that this is just the start of it all, and I hope and wish from all of us here at ET Now that it's a long journey ahead from here as well.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you. Okay, that's the word coming in from Mr. Adi Godrej, talking about the various group companies and, of course, where the Godrej Group is headed, a century-year-old group. But it seems like they're not tiring down anytime soon.